Good morning, students. It's Wednesday morning. Sorry I'm late with this video. I want to talk about problems 20 and 21. Um, I really don't like how problems 20 and 21 are formatted and the questions they ask, because basically when we're talking about property, there are two ways to classify this property. One is by type, whether it's personal property or real property. And the second is by use. What's the use? And so as we work down through 20 and 21, we're going to do those in terms of type and use. So 20A, Reagan um, gave her mother a new set of golf clubs for Christmas. Well, golf clubs would be personal property because it's movable. For those of you that have had business law under the UCC, those would be goods. Personal property is goods under the UCC. They're the same thing. So these golf clubs would be personal property. Their use is probably personal use, unless the mother is a professional golfer. Then it would be trade or business, but here it's probably personal use. Roberta bought a whistle and uniform for use in her job as a referee. So here again, the type would be personal property, because it's for her job as a referee. That would be trade or business property. Rochelle purchased a building and furnishings for use as a pet shop. Okay, so this one we've got two different types of property. The furnishings would be personal property. The building would be real property. And the use would then be trade or business. Graham secured a copyright on a novel that he wrote. Well, this property, the copyright would be intangible property, which is not up here on the board, but it's an intangible property, and probably trade or business if he's a professional author. One of the things I didn't talk about to begin with was whether property is tangible or intangible. Intangible property is property that's represented by a document or a certificate. So stocks, bonds would all be copyrights. Patents would all be intangible property because they're represented by a document. Farmer Brown installed an air conditioning unit in the building that houses his chickens. Well, this one's a little more complicated because it depends on how we picture this air conditioning unit. Is this air conditioning unit a wall air conditioning unit that we put in a window and can take out at any time? That would make it personal property. If it's a central air conditioning unit, then it would be real property. And then the use depends on why he's raising chickens. Is he raising chickens just for him to eat, of which it would be personal use, or is he raising chickens to sell? Then it would be trade or business use. Okay, so this problem hinges on the assumptions you made when you read this problem and what that looked like. Alonzo traded his truck for cows for his dairy farm. So let's talk about the truck first. The truck is personal property. It's movable. It's goods. The use of the truck would depend on what he used it for. Did he use it on the farm as part of his dairy business, or was this a truck that he just used for his personal use? So probably trader business if this is a truck on a farm, but not necessarily if he used it for only non-farm activities. Remember, we talked earlier in this semester about some goods have a mixed use. I drive my car 80% for business and 20% for personal. That would be a mixed use asset. And it's also entirely possible that this truck is a mixed use asset. Some of the miles it's driven is on the dairy for trader business purposes, and some are going into town to do grocery shopping, which would be personal use. Okay, 21. Woodrow spent $53.80 on trees and shrubs for use in his landscaping business. Well, first of all, this would be inventory. And these are trees that are sitting on top of the ground. So these would be personal property. If the trees were actually in the ground, they would be real property, but these are probably sitting on top of the ground, which would make them personal property. And this is for his trader business, his landscaping business. But in addition to that, they are inventory. Woodrow spent $12,000 on a new tennis court for the backyard of his personal residence. Well, this is going to be a tennis court that's permanently attached to the land, which would make it real property. And if Woodrow's not a professional tennis player, then it would be personal use property. If Woodrow is a professional tennis player, then it would be trader business property. Woodrow purchased a trade name Green Gopher for $3,400. This again would be an intangible, just like the copyright. And it depends on why he bought it. Did he buy it to use that in his trader business? Did he buy it because he thought it was going to appreciate in value? Then it would be production of income. Or did he buy it just because he thought it was cool name and going to hang it up above his garage, which would then make it personal use? Woodrow purchased 1 acre of land with the idea of eventually using it to grow shrubs for resale. Again, this is land. This is going to be real property because Woodrow is not going to use it in his trader business yet, but going to hold it for investment. The day he starts planting trees and shrubs on it, or storing trees and shrubs on it, it's going to turn into business use property. But until that day, until he starts using it for that trader business activity, is production of income property. Woodrow purchased an alarm system for fences surrounding his landscaping business. Probably going to be personal property, not permanently affixed to the land, can be removed probably at any time without significant damage to property. And so therefore it's probably going to be personal property. And because it's connected to his landscaping business, it's going to be trader business property. And finally, Woodrow spent $2,600 on lights for the backyard of his residence. It depends on what those lights look like. Are these lights that are permanently affixed to the land? Think of the lights down in the parking lot down by the Chinworth building, right? Those are permanently affixed to the land, as opposed to lights that are just stuck in the ground. Obviously, those are personal property. And so it would depend on if those lights are permanently affixed to the land, making them real property, or just temporary, can be removed without doing significant damage, then they would be personal property. And because this is for his personal residence, no connection to a trade or business activity, they are going to be personal use. All right, let me talk to you for just a second about problem 22. Elle purchased an automobile 2 years ago for $30,000. She uses the 75% for business and 25% for personal use. To date, she has deducted $4,209 in allowable depreciation on the business portion of the automobile. Okay, this is going to be this is actually going to be two assets. It's going to be a trade or business asset. 75% of it's going to be a trade or business asset, and 25% is going to be personal use. And so as we're talking about basis on this thing, we need to separate those two bases. Basis for business use and basis for personal use. Okay, we'll talk more about that tomorrow. We've got the same thing in part B, in which we have a multitude of assets that are purchased at the same time. And because it's a multitude of assets, we need to keep track of them separately. The primary reason being the fact that we're going to depreciate them over different time periods depending on what they are. And so we have this office building, of which consists of a building and land, some remodeling costs, some parking lot and sidewalks, some insurance premiums. And so what we're going to do is we're going to separate all those things because they require a different type of treatment for tax purposes. All right. With that, I'll go ahead and talk to you on Thursday night or Friday morning. Have a good evening or a good day. Be safe. Thank you. Bye.